on an affordability agenda, if this happens and this goes down that path, the betrayal that some of your supporters might feel by increasing things for them.
If the city was forced to do so, would be at a 9.5% increase.
Do you then blame Governor Kathy Hochul for refusing to do a tax hike, and both on the wealthy and on corporations?
The governor said, not going to raise, I don't want to raise taxes on millionaires. And this morning she said she doesn't support property tax hikes. This is a clash between ideology and reality.
This is not a conversation on the basis of ideology.
Would you really, really, really raise property taxes here in New York City?
Hi, Mayor Mamdani, and to Sharif and to Dean. Could you just explain, if the nuclear option is the one you have to go with, what would the property tax rate be increased to? And that would be for all the four classes of properties. And then secondly, on a broader level, you know, I know you ran on an affordability agenda, and this would likely, if this happens, if this goes down that path, not only would it go up for homeowners and you haven't reformed property tax system yet, but it would likely go up for renters because of the tax rate on multi-unit buildings. Do you want to first talk about the tax, the rate increase, and then also, you know, the betrayal that some of your supporters might feel by increasing things for them?
I want to be first very clear. This is a preliminary budget. This is a budget that reflects the only tools that the city has at its disposal. When we are speaking about property taxes, that is a tool of very last resort. We believe it should be viewed as such, not only because it is a broken property tax system, but also because this is a fiscal crisis that was not created by working and middle-class New Yorkers. It should not be placed on their backs in order for the city to resolve it. That is why we will continue to spend each and every day through this budget process, emphasizing the need to chart out the course of the first path. That path would mean increasing taxes on the wealthiest New Yorkers, the most profitable corporations, and ending the drain that has long characterized the relationship between the city and the state. The property tax increase, if the city was forced to do so, would be at a 9.5% increase. This is something that we do not want to do, and this is something that we are going to utilize every single option to ensure does not come to pass.
So, Mayor, do you then blame Governor Kathy Hochul for refusing to do a tax hike, and both on the wealthy and on corporations? And just yesterday, she gave you $1.5 billion additional dollars, but is it not enough? Will New Yorkers suffer at the expense of a governor who doesn't want to also be criticized during an election year?
You know, I am encouraged by the partnership that we have been building with Governor Hochul, and I'm thankful for yesterday's announcement of 1.5, and now what we see translates into $1.6 billion in additional state aid. And I'm also very clear-eyed about the fact that we need to put the city back on firm financial footing. This is the beginning of both the city and the state budget process, and that the most sustainable and fairest means by which we can do so is by raising taxes on the wealthiest, the most profitable corporations, and ending the drain that has long characterized the relationship between the city and the state.
Should we blame her if she doesn't agree to that?
I think what we are seeing right now is what the fiscal deficit is that the city is facing, $5.4 billion, and we are now going to use every single tool at our disposal to ensure that this is a fiscal crisis not resolved on the backs of working and middle-class New Yorkers.
It looks like there's a second part to this path number one, not just obviously the property, or not just the income and corporate tax, but also ending the drain by fixing the imbalance. Is there a specific number that you're looking for in additional state funding that is part of that path number one? And is there, dare I say, a path number three that includes some of this, some of pulling down from reserves? Is it really just one or two in your eyes?
The city contributes 54.5% to the state's revenue, receives 40.5% in return. We are looking for a fair reflection of the city's role within our state. And I'm heartened by the actions that the governor has taken yesterday, the reversal of a number of Cuomo-era cost shifts that we saw the city be targeted time and time again on. There are sadly many more examples of those cost shifts. And the reason that we are emphasizing the need to increase revenue by taxing the richest New Yorkers, the most profitable corporations, the need to end the drain, is that we need structural solutions to a structural crisis. This is a crisis that if we do not resolve in a structural manner, we will only be postponing to have to return to it once again. I know that I do not want to be standing here in this blue room 1 year from now speaking to you about the very same nature of a crisis. It is a crisis that has long been brewing. This year is an opportunity for us to resolve it and put the city back on firm financial footing.
Is there a dollar figure, though, in that ask?
I can tell you the dollar figure that we are looking for is $5.4 billion to ensure that we do not have to go beyond the responsible use of in-year savings, the aggressive savings plan that we have also put forward, and have to broach into the path that we have laid out today.
Two quick ones. The February 25th, a bunch of groups are going up to Albany to follow through on your demand here to pass the tax to the rich. Times reported you aren't going. Has that changed? How are you going to kind of keep this push going? Second, what did you do to inform your coalition partners here that you were proposing this kind of nuclear option that is scary to a lot of working class New Yorkers about a property tax increase?
We have been clear from the very beginning of our time as an administration that the city is facing a significant fiscal crisis, the likes of which we have not seen in a long time. And it is a fiscal crisis that will require attention to structural fixes. So when we first came forward in this blue room, we spoke about the $12 billion that we saw as the fiscal deficit in line with controllers' assessments. That was a $12 billion deficit after the assumption of $4 billion in increased revenue on top of the November 2025 plan. In the time since then, we look to utilize every tool at our disposal to bring that number down. That is why we've put forward an aggressive savings plan. That's why we have CSOs. That's why we're looking at every potential efficiency, at every opportunity to eliminate waste. That was a key part of driving that $12 billion down to $7 billion. Now, thanks to the state's aid, we are looking at $5.4 billion. However, we are reaching this number having exhausted almost every option in front of us, which then requires us to chart out what the two courses of action are. The course that we believe is not only the fairest course, also the most sustainable course, is by ensuring that we end the drain and that we increase taxes on the richest New Yorkers as well as the most profitable corporations. That is something that I have long said. It is something that I will continue to say, because what we are seeing is the absence of that would force us to resolve a generational fiscal crisis on the backs of working and middle-class New Yorkers who did not create it.
Tell that to your council member allies and also February 25th.
We have shared this over the as to the scale of this crisis, and today the actions that we're taking to resolve this crisis. And I can tell you that I've just returned back from Albany from a 5-hour budget hearing and also being at caucus weekend. We will continue to make plans as to how we engage with Albany. It's going to be a constant part of these next few months.
Morgan, go ahead, then Marcia.
Hi, Mr. Mayor.
Hi, Morgan.
Just wondering why, for a third option, why isn't savings a third option for the administration? Why isn't maybe getting relief from the class size mandates a third option that you guys are looking at? And then separately, what happens if the council doesn't go along with the property tax raise? Right now, the council speaker, Julie Menon, is saying that this is not something that should be on the table, an option. So wondering what happens if the council stands opposed to this agenda?
I agree that this is not something that should be on the table. However, the city has very limited tools by which it can reach the legal requirement of a balanced budget in both this fiscal year and the next fiscal year. We are looking at every which way we can to bridge a $5.4 billion fiscal deficit. And as part of our path of reducing the $12 billion to this point, we have a very aggressive savings plan, one that we anticipate, as we showcased, will yield around $1.7 billion over 2 fiscal years. And what we are doing in that savings plan is not just interrogating the efficiencies, the potential to eliminate waste, as well as pulling the city back from its instinct to engage in so many acts of outsourcing to consultants, but also to look at what are the medium-term actions we can take that could reduce the city's expenses. Part of this is tort reform. Part of this is also hiring more fiscal auditors. That work will continue. March 20th is when our CSOs will be presenting their plans to achieve those 1.5 and 2.5% savings. However, we are looking to exhaust every option in front of us. The what we have to share with New Yorkers directly is that is how we got to $5.4 billion. If we find additional savings, we will absolutely use them. However, responsibly, I cannot tell New Yorkers that that is the likelihood over these next few months. Instead, what we have to do is ensure that we do not balance this budget on the backs of working and middle-class New Yorkers.
Mr. Mayor, this is an election year for Governor Hochul and the legislature. We already have a situation where the governor said, I don't want to raise taxes on millionaires. And this morning she said she doesn't support property tax hikes. I wonder if we have a situation where this is a clash between ideology and reality, and if faced with the fact that you won't get those taxes from Albany, would you really, really, really raise property taxes here in New York City?
This is not a conversation on the basis of ideology. This is a conversation about a fiscal crisis. I have long believed in the importance of taxing the rich. I've said so publicly many a time. And I've long believed in the need for the state and the city's relationship to be a fair one. What we are speaking about in this moment, however, is not just that long-standing belief, the long-standing issues that have characterized that relationship, but a generational fiscal crisis of $5.4 billion. And when faced with this crisis, the question is who should pay these taxes? I believe that it should be the wealthiest New Yorkers, the most profitable corporations. I believe that they can afford to pay a little bit more. We are in the most expensive city in the United States of America. I firmly believe in the need to make this an affordable city. I believe that we do so and reckon with structural crises by pursuing the first path, one of raising taxes on the richest New Yorkers, the most profitable corporations, and ending the drain.
When push comes to shove, raise the property taxes?
I do not want to raise property taxes. I have said time and time again that it is a broken system, one that we are sincerely looking to reform, which is why we're going to be sending up a proposed piece of legislation in the next few weeks. What I am showcasing to New Yorkers is that there is one tax the city can raise. It is a broken property tax system. We do not want to do so, which is why we have said time and again that we want to work with Albany to ensure that we resolve this fiscal crisis by addressing the structural roots of it.